Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is probably a last slot today, right? Yeah, and it would be something special, I hope, for all of you. And it would be sort of softcore, because we wouldn't like give you some very hard times. We would just speak about the Python, our beloved language, and we would speak about its future. And I will start probably describing the issue as I can see it, and then we would get some fixes to the description I gave. And I'll start with the issue as I can see it myself, if you'll allow me. The possible issue is that Python is probably no longer that much of the hyped language, that much of the default choice, or maybe that much of the tool which you can use to gather a lot of money quickly, like on the hot market. It's just one side of view, and the other side is that everything's basically great with Python. Python is developing, Python is okay, and there's a lot of more concepts coming, a lot of new pieces of ecosystem coming. So this is basically the problem we would discuss, and right now I guess I could give you I can give you a word to I can give you ability to speak about it. Who wants to say something? Yeah.
I can start if you want. Hi. So
what do you think in general if there's a problem?
I can see. So I'm not totally sure on the challenges that you see at the moment. I can feel that fear that you may have about it, but at the same time, we saw past years there were, for example, Forbes reports that the use of Python growth by 450%, which seems that still
it's get down it or
it went up 450% according to Forbes.
Could you please elaborate? It was in like last year or
it was in 2017. So Forbes reported that in 2017 the usage of Python raised by 450%. Then we can see that, for example, in Stack Overflow, 1 out of every 100 questions is just about pandas. So I think that pandas and data science and data science in general is pushing a lot Python. And we see in terms of like jobs, it seems to, according to, for example, Agent List, which is about startups that you can kind of look to see if you want to see what are kind of the latest preferences of small companies for languages. It was the second language that had more job positions. So I personally am not that concerned about the popularity of Python in the short term. I can see that we are kind of not that strong in some areas, like for example, mobile development. That's kind of a battle that hasn't been won at all. We can elaborate maybe more there. And I might be concerned about web, maybe if that's kind of one of your fears, because maybe Node is starting to get hard. But I'm not that concerned, at least myself, in terms of the future of Python, in terms of popularity.
You're, remind me please, you're more of a data science.
Not at all.
Right?
Actually, not at all. So I work, I lead the Python infrastructure team at Bloomberg. So I'm more like totally the other corner. I'm more like infrastructure Python. Yeah.
So
I don't know what other people think.
Okay, I got it. So yeah, got your position. Anyone else to add to? How do you feel? Is there a problem with Python?
So I feel like I share a little bit of that fear that Python is losing popularity. It has gained significant popularity in academia and data science and machine learning. But yeah, you're right. You're not going to like mine bitcoins with Python. I also see it like I'm also an infrastructure engineer, and while all my services are built in Python, we're starting to write a little bit more Go. Yeah, like all last week, I was writing in Go. Don't hate me. But as we like move to like Kubernetes, Go is becoming like the language of more infrastructure-related code. And in Python, I've seen kind of lose a lot of ground, but it's still quite a popular language there. But I think without a lot of love and care in that sort of area, it'll continue to lose ground.
You mean in the area of infrastructure? Okay.
So I would like to reiterate what the others two said with another number. There's this TOB index, which is like the index in which language are, I think, the most job postings, unless I'm wrong. And for the first time in its history,
Top three, right?
Yeah, Python went in the top 3. So there is no doubt about Python's popularity right now as a whole thing. Obviously, I share the fear a little bit too. So there's always been this joke that Python is the second best language for anything you can do. And there's quite a bit of areas where that's not true anymore. So it's definitely not true for mobile, which I personally do not care about, or it's not true for desktop applications. But it's also not true anymore for web. You can do web development in Python just fine. I mean, Django is okay. There is quite a bit of work being done by Andrew Godwin, the SGI process. So there's more async coming there because it's kind of a problem that you can do properly WebSockets in Python. But this kind of stuff is coming. There's a bit of problem that it's underfunded. So there's too few people doing too much work. And if certain people just fell off the bandwagon or couldn't work anymore, it will be immediately a big problem. For example, for async IO, if Yuri Selivanov stopped working on async IO, we are screwed. So, for example, he's working, as far as I know, on this. People ask about nurseries and Trio. So there's been, since I'm both friends with Nathaniel from Trio and with Yuri from async IO, I keep seeing this dynamic that Nathaniel blocks something or writes something, and Yuri just implements it for async IO. So this has been a Hansen 4 all the time. So that's, for example, is good. It's a good dynamic, but there are too few people working on it.
Best factor.
Also, Python core development has a problem. They do not have enough developers. That keeps being a problem. They did run a few statistics and compared to like 10 years ago, and there's less activity. All these things could also be interpreted in a different way. It's like Python is a really mature platform right now, and you cannot really change a lot easily because you will break things, and there's no hype around it. It's mature. It's it is how it is. But to the point, I'm also like an infrastructure guy, so I like this whole thing about async IO and building glue with it, and we are losing their ground to Go totally.
And
which is
JavaScript also, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. JavaScript, like Node.js, has eaten our lunch for web development. That's definitely true. For infrastructure, it's Go, and I don't really think that it's Python's fault that it happened. Although there are problems with Python packaging, and it used to be worse, but it got better. And I think Docker solved a lot of those problems. But I think one of the problems is that a lot of the technology in DevOps nowadays is in Go. Like Kubernetes is in Go, so you're not going to write modules for Kubernetes in Python. It just doesn't make any sense. So you just use whatever is there. So I think that's one of the problems. But yeah, so I think I've said enough.
Yes, yeah. Could you, yeah.
So I'm more on the data science part of Python. We are using Pandas ecosystem in our work, and I'm working mostly with scientists who are good enough to program in Python, but they don't want to discover too much. And this ecosystem works very well for us. So we are just discovering, every day we are discovering beautiful libraries that... Huh?
One happy guy on the panel.
Now we are just discovering every day new libraries, new functionalities, and we just need more time and more developers to do all this beautiful stuff with that. And about the job openings, the question is, are they filled also? Because if you can search for Python developers in some regions in Europe, you have problems to find.
Yes, what I heard too. People are complaining all the time.
Yeah.
People are complaining all the time. There was a posting on a pyramid mailing list where like people openly complain it's basically impossible to find good pyramid developers. And I keep getting spam from recruiters all the time, so it can't be that bad to find a job.
But can we, I don't know, take these metric for how hard it is to find any specific developer as a valid metric for language? Because in any given language, probably it's hard to find a developer always.
Yeah.
No?
Well, I think Python now is in a position where maybe Java was some years ago in terms of how much it is used in universities to teach programming. And that's really, really important because, as we know, universities are not exactly the fastest thing in the world to pick up new technologies. And this gives Python some advantage now because now it's in a very good position, and for me, it's going to be in this position for many years to come still. So this gives the community some time to react to these changes and these challenges that you mentioned already. I'm going to talk a little bit about the scientific community because I speak to many people about this, and some people perceive like there's some sort of division in the community. I'm presently and all the time I'm teaching like Python courses using data science tools and scientific tools and etc. And there's always Windows users or Mac users that cannot get the packages installed in their computers because pip is not solving the dependencies or because there's not a wheel for some specific package. It's a real challenge to get started with Python in some specific environments. It's not that difficult in some others, but I think Python is going to thrive in the data science world because it has so much potential, and now all the data science infrastructure is written in Python, like scikit-learn, TensorFlow, PyTorch, etc. But no doubt it's changing a lot, the ecosystem in general, and people are a bit put off by this kind of difficulty. So for me, it's something that the community should work on more actively instead of criticizing each other because this conda versus pip and blah, 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 and try to join forces and see what can be done.
Like author of poetry versus author of pip and stuff like that.
And we love this kind of politics, and I don't know if it's the correct term in English, pink press. This is sort of,
Yeah, I don't know how that's in English.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it. It's a Spanish thing. We love to watch these arguments between developers online, and that's drama. Thank you very much. We love the drama, and yeah, and we should try to avoid it, especially now because the Python community it's in a very important point now that we lost our benevolent dictator for life, and we're like deciding what to do next. It's not something that is happening like out of the public. It's not like the average Python developer knows what's going on, but it's, no doubt it's going to affect the future of the language, and that we have to get it right as well.
Yeah, so there are two things I like to comment about, and one I think is really interesting and maybe we want to deep dive on more. I think that when we think on Python and the future of Python, we're always thinking on professional developers, and we are missing out this battle that Python is absolutely winning, which is all these people that are using Python just as a tool, not to build systems, but just to explore things. I'm surprised to see, I'm really surprised when I see an accountant using Python to automate tasks that they have to do in Excel. I'm surprised to see, for example, my partner, she's an architect, and she models building with a program that's part of Autodesk that does things on Python. It's kind of visual programming, but if you want to go further, it's all Python. When I see that, I'm shocked, right? Or there is also reporters writing news and analyzing data with Python. Python is really getting into this field of allowing people to speak with a computer and to manage a computer and create programs without needing to be like a professional developer. And I think that's not only a battle that's winning, but that's a huge thing for computer science in general. And then On the other hand, what you mentioned about packaging and you were mentioning about the core developers, like this is a real issue. Like I can see, like I think it's what you were speaking about is like this tweet where they said like 20% of the pull requests that were created were by a bot, 10% and then the other 20% were just by 2 core developers. Like there are really few core developers that are truly active in CPython at the moment. And what's even worse, I had words from some of those telling me that this is a task that is really like draining their life, because they get all the bad, but they don't get a lot of people thanking them for the work. This is a total altruistic job, and I have a friend who is a developer, and told me like he compares CPython to some kind of a machine that will shock your soul and take your life out of it, and he's just throw to it for it to grow. And I find it really sad that people that are maintaining and giving us the way to code in Python and therefore like make our own life feel that way. And we see platforms that they were like, we see more and more platforms that are looking like maybe they will get unsupported if you go to the build bots because they're unstable, there's no people maintaining those. There are other problems in packaging that maybe with some effort and maybe some help, they could be improved. And those are, as you said, maybe there's a problem of under-resourcing at the moment in Python that maybe if that were solved, maybe we could advance faster or better.
I would quickly comment on this specifically. You can, so, code like I'm also a mostly dormant core developer, and I got to feel this what he just described from the first hand. So I wouldn't say that I felt a lot of hate, but it's incredibly unglamorous. So let me ask you one question: how many of you do know Kenneth Wright? Hands up. Kenneth Wright?
The author of Python, or
yeah, or how many of you know who wrote requests? Yeah, it's more hands. That's weird. So, how many of you can name 3 core developers except Guido?
Oh no.
Except Guido.
Wow.
Exactly. How many of you can name 1 except Guido? 1 or more. Of course, you can. So this is exactly what I mean. It's like if you can have like a modestly successful open source project on GitHub, and you get more famous than working many hours on core development. And I have a good example with Luca Schlanger, which is also a core developer. He will also be the release manager for the next 2 releases, so remember his name. And nobody knew who he was. He had barely any followers on Twitter. And then he released a package, which I will give a lightning talk about tomorrow, so I'm not going to spoil it. But suddenly, he is famous. And the irony of this, of a project that cost him a few hours compared to weeks, a month, and years of his life. And there was like literally nothing coming back. The only thing you get from it is like satisfaction of making a change, but nothing else. Only people complaining somewhere on Reddit that something's broken and that core dev are stupid. So, and I don't have a solution really, but I don't know, maybe we should find a way to appreciate their work more. I don't know. Also, one thing, like specifically to your question, with the numbers, there's one thing that you have always to remember, and that is that success hides problems. And while we are very, very, very successful right now, like Python is super awesome right now, but we have some problems. And if we do not tackle them while we are on the top, we will suffer later on.
It was just apropos thanks. You mentioned it a few minutes ago. I think last week I heard on some Python podcast that there is a new argument for pip. You can do just pip instead of pip install package. You can do pip thanks package, and the author is going to get some thanks, or it will be announced somewhere. Maybe there should be something similar for Python thanks.
You know, the other thing about.
But of course, thanks is not going to pay your loan. So.
Yeah, but it's good feelings. That's very important as well. There is other thing that I think in the future there are competing goals, and there's a question on priorities in Python. For example, every Python conference that I go, there's someone talking about the GIL, and everybody gets so excited about the GIL. Well, scientific community cares zero about the GIL because everything is CPU bound, so they are not using. They are using multiprocessing anyway, and they have like their own parallelization.
Let me ask you. You mean excited about removing GIL or?
Yeah, they don't care about it existing. Like it's not that important, and it hasn't been really important. Or another thing, the Python 2 to 3 transition, because the pain point there was mostly like Unicode strings and etc. So NumPy ported from 2 to 3 instantly. Like it was one of the first projects to port, and many people didn't know that it was working in Python 3. But in the future, like if Python is going towards data science, and etc., and the core developers are working in fixing GIL and concurrency and etc., then the divide is going to be deeper. Like I understand the motivation for the rest, but it has to be taken into account the other part as well. And it's not easy to conceal both families of priorities, but it has to be taken into account somehow.
Okay, I think you mean what? No,
yeah.
I'm always giving you the bad microphone. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
Wait.
For data science, GIL is not a problem. Python 2 to Python 3 is a problem.
Could you elaborate the why do you think it needs to be balanced? Because I suspect I know why, but you didn't say it. So what is the balance here?
Do you want to say more?
No, that's all.
It's only working in my hand. Why it needs to be balanced? Like the development.
Yeah. So because you just insinuated that there's a conflict, and why do you mean that?
No, it's not. Well, it's a conflict as long as there are limited resources. If we have infinite core developers, we can add as many features and fix as many bugs as we need.
Yeah.
But as the resources are limited, we have to prioritize, and then the priorities are what mark the direction of the language, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Okay, because there is one conflict, and I don't know if you heard about it. If you don't, maybe I will spoil your day. There are plans to break the C API to get rid of the GIL, which would be really bad for...
That's not true. No. They plan to create a new C API, but it won't break the previous one because we don't
well,
want again
there
another
are
Python
no
3.
concrete plans.
No fears, okay? No fears.
The room is on fire.
Python 4?
Call down a little bit.
Sorry, maybe I did.
This plan is like really old, right?
I think there are talks around, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are talks about creating a new C API that will allow different changes that are not able to be done now. But as far as I know, they plan to, this is all in talks at the moment, I believe. But there are plans on making this new C API, well, the old C API basically kind of called the new C API, so it won't break, but it might be a little bit slower. Which gives you an incentive to move to the newer one. But yeah, like you won't. There's no. They were actually thinking. We were speaking before that they were actually thinking to release Python 4 as just the new release of Python 3.8. Or 3.9, just to make people lose the fear of the next time that we move to a major release is going to be so painful, right? So that's. I think that we all saw the issues of moving to 2 to 3, and in general, both the community and the core developers don't want people to go through the same again. I just wanted to count down the fear of we might have to change everything again.
Yeah, and to your point, you cannot force. I know you are not doing that. I'm just explaining. You cannot force someone work on something they do not care about. So when I'm working on core, I obviously work on topics that I care about. So the only solution to your problem is to get more data science-y people into core development?
Or more core developers that care about data science-y problems, I don't know. This is very similar to what happened when Conda was created. Because the story was that someone went to some PyCon and was fed up with some problems with pip, which luckily are not there anymore because it's been so much progress in the last year. But they say to Guido, well, we cannot use pip for this, and the C extensions stuff is so painful to use, and blah, blah, blah. And then he said, figure out the problem yourselves. And this is when Conda was created. Many people don't know this story, and then they come to me like, oh, Conda should not exist, they should have improved pip, and blah, blah, blah. But it's not what happened in reality. So all these dynamics are important for the evolution. Of course, you cannot force anybody to work in what they don't want to, but if we are concerned about the future of the language, if people don't see their needs satisfied in the language, and this includes not only data scientists, but also people that need Go, or people that prefer JavaScript, Node.js, etc., then they will fly and use other languages. So from a product perspective, if someone has to make these decisions or these prioritizations, they have to think of these issues, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. The problem is that there is no product perspective, right? And again, I know you're not insinuating anything, but that's something to keep in mind whenever you think about this core development. It's just a bunch of people who, in their free time, like nobody, as far as I know, is literally paid to work on core, except Victor Stinner, I think. He gets something. But other than that, nobody gets paid to work on that. So they do whatever they want to spend their free time on. So there's obviously no real agenda. There's no product thinking. And the only way to move core development in a certain direction is to get involved.
There is
Oh, that would be the best solution.
better to use microphone because you wouldn't get to the translation. There is a saying that when you come to the, say, Python event or like front-end event or Go event, you see a lot of dynamic change, a lot of progress visible and touchable progress in that fields. And when you come to the Python events, you just see the same stuff, the new library is doing the same thing. Do you agree with that? Because you are the people who are visiting a lot of events, right? Like a lot, I guess.
I mean,
do you feel it when you come to events?
I hear you. I see a lot of. I mean, in favor of the Python. I'm an optimistic. Okay, so be aware of that. I hear what you say, but at the same time, in favor of Python, there are a lot of Python events, right? And I think the community is really, really strong in kind of all the continents, and you would see things being repeated. At the same time, even if I sadly agree that maybe the development of Python is not as fast as maybe other languages, we start to see now more talks about async I/O, right? We start to see more talks about typing. Those are really new things that are coming in the language itself that you wouldn't see that much in conferences maybe 3-4 years ago. So I want to believe there are some things coming out.
Yeah.
And well, also like, Python is probably more mature than these other technologies. So you see like there's some stagnation at some point in terms of features, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. You already talked about that it's a mature ecosystem, and people that invest lots of resources in mature ecosystems also expect it not to change too much. So it's kind of a trade-off, you know, you either are in the bleeding edge and lots of changes and etc., or you live in the bleeding edge and you have to fix your code every 3 months because things are changing so fast. So you have to select where you want to be.
There are Python events and Python events. There are not only PyCons, regional, national, EuroPython conferences, but there are many specialized Python conferences like PyData, or even very specific like GeoPython. So it's a whole conference in Switzerland where they talk 2-3 days just about geographic systems using Python. So there are many more other conferences that we don't know about, where people from specific, mostly scientific spheres use Python and discuss new tools, new ways of using Python for their work.
So speaking of Python winning battles, just to be optimistic too, it's clearly education. As I can see, it's clearly the audience of people who just wants to talk to the computer, like scripting, basic stuff. And it's clearly data science, machine learning, and probably that data science, machine learning is the reason that why Python took the top 3 at TOB.
The first one you mentioned was scripting. The possibility that I can use Python in IPython or in Jupyter Notebook and manipulate my variables, see all the attributes immediately, visualize them as graphics, plots, that is a great advantage for people, for scientists who want to work with their data and see that immediately. They are not interested that the program needs in between a few seconds, because they type enter, wait for a few seconds, they see the result. And that's something that is much more important than the speed of the language comparing to Java or Go.
So the idea is that even Python lost. Sorry, it's a sort of a painful topic for me itself. That's what this panel was actually created. The idea is that even Python, say, lost its position in web, I guess, maybe a little bit or stuff like that. It should focus on his strong sides and on its winning fields, stuff like that. This is the idea.
Or maybe
Or we should try to go and fight for the losing fields too.
We're in 2018 now, and yesterday someone in my company, we are in love of Python, all of us. Like the organizer of Python Spain, Python Israel, and Python Argentina, and Python Argentina working in my company. So we're a Python-oriented company. And yesterday they wanted to open a blog, an internal blog, to share like content with others, and they used WordPress. Yes, PHP. And you know, here in the Python community,
I knew PHP would be mentioned in this discussion.
Here in the Python community, we love to play, not in the Python community, programmer communities love to play jokes of the other languages, you know. But the reality is that there is a product that is so simple and so easy to use in PHP that even a super Pythonic company is willing to just install PHP because it's the simplest way to do, even if it might be a maintenance burden or some security concerns or whatever. So, and I don't have like a WordPress equivalent in Python still. What I've been told many times is that in reality you don't want a dynamic blog. You know, what you want is a static site generator. And I say, okay, maybe that's what I want in some cases, but in some other cases I don't want to maintain this, or I want some comment system, or I want translation. I don't know. There are some other features that I lose in the way, and I want that too. So I don't know. There's something going on, or there must be some reason why there is no Py WordPress yet.
Well, as someone who's literally living off the fact that WordPress is very popular, because the company I work for, we are doing mostly PHP hosting, and the reason is simple. Like, you untar an archive and it works, and this is never going to happen with Python. And
so we're again going about packaging and dependency management,
but also workflows maybe, and having like good practices.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's more of an accident in their case, and they started solving their scaling problem outside of the applications. I don't know. This is like a specific. I think it's a perfect storm of many factors, and it's not really. Yeah, but the shop systems is the same, right? You get like all the big open source shop solutions are also PHP. Yeah. So
I do agree that like PHP makes it easy and that you can just shove it on the server and just like works. But also Python is also on like all like Linux servers and Mac, and it's just like there. Granted, you do have to like pip install a lot of things that you might need, but it's also a very rich standard library. I don't see like the next scripting language that will be default in all like Linux or Unix type OSs to change. I don't see like it being Rust or Go or something like that. And we're also not the only ones that have like packaging problems. I mean, if anyone ever installed like a Node site, yeah, you you install the world essentially. And like Go, like the whole Go path thing, I just feel better about Python path issues because I've had a lot of Go path issues before, and how like Go kind of hard codes like GitHub URLs when you go get stuff. It's we're not the only ones with problems, but I don't think that we're gonna. I don't think we're gonna go anywhere anytime soon because we are like standard on a a lot of operating systems. And I think to your question earlier about whether we should double down on what we do well in versus invest in things that we're losing on, I think we should just be good at like one or a few things and really excel at that. And maybe we do need to like get more developers or core developers in the data science field. But I don't think that we should try and go after like web anymore. And I mean, there's going to be like the new hot thing tomorrow that we're going to have to learn and then forget about the next week kind of thing. So it's a fast-moving part of the industry. So I don't know. I don't see Python going anywhere anytime soon.
Thank you.
So first, I would be afraid. There's one language I would be afraid for scripting, and it's JavaScript, because on Macs, Apple chose JavaScript as their successor to AppleScript, although they did it half-assedly. So it's like, but they chose it. And there's, if you follow the Apple ecosystems, there's from a big company called Omnicorp, and they're doing like OmniFocus, and they also created their own scripting environment, which is called OmniJS. So you can guess that it's not Python. But as to the web thing, I wouldn't see it that bleak. So it also depends what exactly you want. If you want Python in a browser, because no, I don't think that's going to happen. I know some people do it, and I personally don't think that it's valuable to pursue. Although with WebAssembly, maybe, who knows? But I think that Python is doing quite fine in the web. It's just not as hyped as it used to be. It used to be like the next big thing in web. Then came others who were better at it, but it doesn't mean that we are bad. I mean, Instagram is still a Django application. So you can scale a Python web application. That's not the problem.
I guess web in Python is just boring now.
It is, absolutely, especially Django, which is a good thing.
So is it, I don't know, a Java way of things or PHP way of things? Which path the Python basically
PHP
go?
is closer, I think, culturally. I think culturally PHP is closer to us, like boring, because we didn't go like enterprise style, right? But on the other hand, to give an example, Kenneth writes. Oh, thank you, so good. I should get like a cigarette.
If you want to hold it, you're invited.
I should get a cigarette to get my thoughts. No, so Kenneth Wright released this web framework the other day called Responders, and he got his hype around it. So there is interest in web development in the Python community. So I don't think we are going down or something. It's not gonna be the big thing anymore. And maybe we didn't even lose that much as it feels. Maybe we just grew that much on the other sides. If you look at the PyPI downloads, they're going up all the time. So maybe we just got outgrown. We are a small minority in the Python community, and we're gonna deal with it.
And also to add like a positive note, I think that when we finally ditch Python 2 in 1 year and 2 months,
Someone's counting days.
yeah, exactly. It's going to be like throwing a huge backpack of stones down the river for the community. Like it's going to be so liberating. Because now people are stuck in some subset of the syntax that works at the same time in Python 2.7 and Python 3.5 maybe. And
I don't actually recall. Would there be security fixes for second Python after
nothing,
2020?
right? Nothing.
Huh?
Yeah. It's going to be the Windows XP of programming languages very soon.
That would be so interesting.
When I see the code base in Python 2 a few years ago now, and I extrapolated it, in many companies it won't happen in 12 or 18 months. Unfortunately, I don't know, you have to forbid diesel cars in the cities or do something that really the companies are forbidden to use Python 2, because always in some projects you get a whole code base of Python 2, and your hands are just handcuffed and you cannot do anything.
But there's a business opportunity there, because on 1st January 2020, I can create a consulting company that does Python 2 consulting for huge companies. I don't know, I'm going to get rich. I saw this idea for free. This is for you.
Yeah, this is a bit optimistic. I think that what will happen is that some companies will just say, screw this, we rewrite this and go.
No, and the problem is also that Python 2 actually works. It works if you are happy with your version like 5 years ago, in data science again, then it will be still used. There won't be any new versions, any new functions of pandas or other libraries, but people are going still to use it, unfortunately.
Wait. Lynn,
Yeah.
do you want to comment? Okay.
Yeah, so this is something like I would ask everyone to help out here, which is like we have to be aware that after 2020, running Python 2 is not secure. And that's key. Maybe, yeah, like Red Hat will probably continue to maintain it.
You mean IBM?
Well, I like to see IBM actually supporting the buildbot, which is failing at the moment and it's marked as unstable. If they want to keep supporting in IBM, because I know one of the core developers that's maintaining all the buildbots is totally burned out of maintaining the buildbots. Thank you, Pablo, if you're looking at me. So yeah, like I want, I don't want people to think. I think it's really important that we tell our companies that it's not just that there's not going to be new features. There is not going to be new features for 2.7. The issue is that after 2020, you are running unsecure software in your clusters, which is really risky.
How was it with the millions of COBOL lines?
I know, but I can see, I would lie if I think that all the code in my company is going to be moved by 2020, but we need to be sure that this is a concern in the place where we work, and we have to be sure that people know that, this is something that has to happen. Like, we have to move away from Python 2.
Of course, and anything that is public, like web services and so on, absolutely. But there are still some systems that run on good data, on safe data that just work, and nobody is going to update them to Python 3. Not that soon, unfortunately.
Well, the Voyager probes are running Fortran 66 still, and they are up and kicking. So, if it works, nobody's going to change it. But if it's something that you have to maintain and etc., at some point, I assume it's easier to port something from Python 2.7 to Python 3.4 maybe than from Python 2.7 to Go, I guess.
No, but imagine when you are 60 years old, how much we will get paid because you are the last one who can still write Python 2.7. Maintain it.
COBOL situation.
Ooh, a print without parentheses. I know what to do with this.
May I ask you another question? Okay. I would like to ask you maybe one of the most important questions. Again, most important for me. What to do with the whole situation? I mean, if you could suggest one or two drastical measures or important major goals to follow, for you as the leaders of Python world, or maybe for some more or less regular people like me or the audience, what to do with the current situation? What can we do to make it better?
You mean if I could wish anything?
Okay.
So it's simple. The answer is money. If you look at any successful recent language, Rust is funded by Mozilla, Go is pushed by Google, Node had Giant behind itself. They all had people who were being paid to work professionally full time on those platforms are still working. I mean, Java, for God's sake, there's Oracle behind that. So that's what we need. We need we need more money. We need professional full time core developers, and that's it. That would solve everything.
So actually, on that point, I'd like to ask a question to an audience. What do you think is faster, JavaScript or Python? So Python, raise your hand. Who thinks that Python is faster than JavaScript?
For what?
In general. For
it's too common question.
yeah. So the things like for general computation, JavaScript is like the JavaScript VM is much faster than Python because it's much more optimized. Yeah. And this is something that surprised a lot of people. But this comes because there was a lot of money put into the JavaScript VM, and this is something that's not happening in Python. If we had more companies paying full-time developers to work on CPython, would see a huge improvement in CPython, right? Because as he said, there is Victor who has time to work on CPython on his work time, and Pablo, who works with me, has also 1 day every 2 weeks, but the rest is all altruist. So there is a problem of people.
Donald staff has 3 days a week, right, to work on pip.
On
3 days a week or something
yeah.
like that, 2 days a week. I
And
don't
then
know.
there's Ernest that's working in kind of general operations. But that's all for professional developers working in Python as, as part of their salary, to say it in a way.
So
Which is
let me get this straight. So basically, you're saying that one of the, or maybe the one root of the all evil in Python is the lack of money, and the lack of money is from lack of corporations, right? Or not?
Wow, that's well. First of all, I don't feel like as a leader that I would set such a direction at all. I just want to think of myself as just one more Python user, but I can see this problem happening. I don't know if it's the main problem that the community should tackle, but I think it's something that it has proven to work in many other languages, and maybe we could take that into ours.
What is, by your opinion, the main problem the community should tackle, for example?
I think that's probably the main problem, but I don't. I think I'm not in a position to know what's the main problem that will solve all the problems of Python.
Okay.
I totally agree with the sustainability thing. I think the Python community needs a sustainability strategy. If we think of the single most successful open source project in history, which is the Linux kernel, there are lots of people getting paid to work on it, and that's the key for the success probably. So in Python, I don't see why shouldn't be the same case. And that's like the core issue of the ecosystem itself, so to speak. And in terms of maybe features or something like that, I totally agree with Lynn that we should like focus on our strengths and try to see how can improve. Well, it's true that packaging is worse in other languages, but maybe it's something that can be done a little bit more. And in general, try to work on the performance thing, not of the C extensions that of course are fast because they are C, but of the language itself, because something I mentioned in my talk today is that lots of the high-level features of Python, introspection, is-instance, etc., they are quite slow, and that harms some use cases that are very valid, so that should be worked on as well, I think.
Money is the problem, but look at those dozens and dozens of people sitting here, thousands of people who are going to watch this on YouTube. Most of them are software developers working for companies that have, of course, to pay their money, but they are saving a lot of money on open source tools because they chose Python as their language, programming language of choice, and they are saving money because they don't pay nothing for Python, they pay nothing for all the libraries they are using. And if you try to speak to your managers to support the tools, the open source tools you are using in your company, and the company is saving money with that, the company won't save that much money, but maybe there will be enough money to support people who can work full-time on very important Python projects.
You know, there's a Twitter joke about it. It's like you can go to your company manager and ask him to spend a little bit of open source tool you use on daily basis in all your project in the company, and they say no because it's open source. Why support it? And then you go to the same manager with the request to buy some vendor locked shit for like $1 million a month, and they say yes, okay, we need it. What's your opinion on what should we focus, or what should you as a leaders focus to save the Python? Save the private Python.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if I have much to add to what everyone else has said. It is money and funding. I guess what we can do to sort of bridge the fact that we need more money is kind of more community engagement in general, like with all the Python meetups and PyLadies and every other meetup that we have, and start like hosting more like sprints for like CPython and be like intro to contributing to CPython or other major projects. I mean, that's if we don't have money, perhaps we have time, and we can contribute that way.
Actually, that's sort of funny. You mentioned PyLadies. And you see, we've hosted a meetup recently with Paul Everett. You know Paul Everett? Okay. He's the one most famous Python person in the world, I guess. And he came with a T-shirt like Python 1994. It was great. And among many other things, he said that evening, Paul said a very strange thing. He said that Python right now is being driven mostly by two things. And the first thing is data science machine learning, which is obviously everyone telling this these days. But the second thing is women. And it sounded very, very weird, because what he meant was Python community actually did a really great thing, probably first of all other communities, bringing huge social groups like that into attention and giving them the language technology involvement to community. And I think that's another maybe winning side of the Python community, probably. Why did I say that? It's just a story, I guess. We have a couple of a few minutes. Maybe we could run a quick QA session with the audience. Maybe they have some questions for you. So yeah, can we have a green person?
I would like to ask each participant of this panel, what is your second favorite programming language, and why is it better than Python?
Great question. So.
I guess I'm reluctant to say Go. It is easy to get up and running with Go. I feel like a little bit more easier for my mental model, but I feel like Rust is particularly more interesting, but more difficult for me to kind of wrap my head around, especially like memory management and all that fun stuff. But I guess, I mean, definitely not JavaScript for me, and not C. But yeah, I guess Go.
Can I say YAML?
Jason. No?
So for me,
It's too incomplete. Yes.
it is. No, for me it's definitely not Go. I can. So I'm very happy to not need anything else than Python usually, because and that's the reason why we are using it. So to say something positive, Python is still one of the most broadly applicable and versatile languages that there are. And that's why we use it. We are a small company. We cannot afford to have like a specialist for every single thing. So we do everything in Python and everything works and it's nice. So the only thing that we sometimes run into problems when we don't need more performance. So we could go for Go, but it will be like halfway. So I guess my second favorite one is Rust. It makes me feel really dumb. Like I come from C. I learned programming on an Amiga with assembler in C. So like memory management is not something very confusing to me, but Rust manages to confuse me anyway. So I feel really dumb there. In a way, I enjoy it because it's humbling. It's good to remember how it feels when you do something new, and you can you learn some more empathy with beginners, whatever there is. So I guess for that alone, it's Rust for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of divided between ActionScript 3, which was my first real programming language, because I started like doing Flash animations and games and etc. And Mathematica probably. And I never wrote a single line of Julia yet, but I know it's going to become one of my second favorite language when I start using it. And the reason of what these three languages have in common for me is the things you can do with them, not the language itself or the syntax or whatever, but what you can achieve. Mathematica is not an open language, it's a closed source platform, but I totally fell in love with it when I started using it, and I said, wow, I would love to reproduce all of this scientific stuff in Python. and I've managed to more or less do it. But I think for scientific people and engineers and etc., the language is important, but the platform and the ecosystem and having like some sort of support for it, it's as important.
Okay, my answer is going to be really boring. For me, I would say, and it's because of my situation, I would go for C++, probably because I have a lot of experience in it, and that's the one I probably use more together with Python whenever I need to draw for more performance. Though quite usually I will just bind to it from Python. But if I had more experience on C#, I would probably say C#, because I work a little bit with C# and it felt like a cleaned up version of C++ with batteries included. I don't know if you see what I mean. So yeah, that would be my take.
Perl.
Wow.
I'm a slow and lazy typer, so I prefer to think a little bit what I'm going to type and then just type it in a few lines, not lines, a few characters. And Perl was also my first real language in which I also did a little bit of data science, a lot of data science with the PDL module. And I remember like 10 years ago, I had in our company, we were slowly switching to Python. I was the last one who still wrote in Perl. And I had a book, Python for Perl Programmers. And it was always like a dictionary. It was like what you write in Perl and then how you write it in Python. And for me, it was like, why do I have to import regular expressions module? I'm using it all the time. And when I switched to Python, I'm almost never using it again. But in those times, of course, regular expressions were second nature to me because you could do everything with regular expressions.
Okay. That's, I guess, answers your question. So, how many time do we have? I guess we can have one quick question more from the audience. Yeah, the gentleman on the behind.
Hey, do you think Python suffers from the problem that people think it's not cool? Because I see a lot of young developers,
cool.
Young startups. Question is, do you think people think it's not cool? Because there's tons of companies that jump for other languages where they can just use Python.
They think it is cool. Last year I did a meetup in Karlsruhe where I live a short overview of Python for non-Python programmers. It was really full. So many people who came from different backgrounds, and I have read so much about Python. It looks great. We are not using it, but I would like to see it. Most people, IT professionals, think that Python is cool.
I think it's a matter of expectations. If you come from a software engineering background or computer science background, you won't be easily impressed by the Python syntax or whatever, or the Python current status, because we said it's mature and everything. So you probably I don't know, there are people that enjoy functional programming or people that enjoy like new concurrent languages, whatever. But the first time I talked Python to some aerospace engineers whose only tool to do any sort of calculation was Excel, you should have seen their faces when they could manage to write a software that would automate the calculation for them. These people think they are so very cool, that Python is so cool. And scientists porting code from IDL, MATLAB, Fortran 77 to Python think it's so cool. So yeah, Python is very cool.
I think on the other side of the spectrum, for like web dev or maybe some infrastructure, there's a lot of cool kids on the block within Node and that whole space. But I think also those people return to Python because it's like the comfy sweatshirt that you always want to wear and that you enjoy like writing. And that like fads come and go, but like Python's always there for you.
I think this is just
Perfect end, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and maybe the perfect end for the discussion. Let's congratulate our guests of panel discussion with applause. Thank you.